All right.
Good. All right. Okay. I am Unbothered Mike from the Blend Me Podcast. I'm joined by a very, very special guest, Mr. Zeno Robinson. How are you doing, my guy?
I'm blessed, man. How are you, brother?
Hey, man, I'm good, bro. I'm just happy we got to make it to the right room. You know, we had a little fiasco a second ago.
Yeah,
so.
no worries, no worries. I was just like, let them have this room. We'll move.
Right. No, we made it happen. So,
yeah.
I appreciate you pulling up with us for a second here, man.
I appreciate you having me. I'm gonna shout you out right quick because I came to the con like 2 days ago. I was like, oh man, I was scrambling to get my hair twisted, and then I needed to get it shaped up in the back. And so I got here, and I was like, man, I was looking for barbers, and our friend Eden was like, oh, I know barbers, and apparently the barber that she found was from from Land May. And so like, thank you, so you saved me, bro.
Hey, listen.
You hooked me up, man. So I really appreciate that.
As somebody who's
cut me
hairline challenged, you know, I try to make sure my other guys that's still in the game, you know, make sure they straight. You know what I'm saying? So
I appreciate it.
You know,
yeah.
Hey, no, it was good,
Your
bro.
boy Jordan, right?
Jordan's my guy.
So shout out to Jordan too, because I know he listens.
Yeah, shout out to Jordan. Jordan gave me my very last haircut.
Your very last.
Yes, he gave me my very last haircut. So shout out to Jordan. That is my guy. Definitely the biggest spoiler of Naruto I've ever seen in my life, and he knows it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm glad we got you hooked up, because I was literally going to the store. And Eden calls me. I'm like, let me see what Eden wants. She's like, yo, I need a favor. You the only kind of local I know. I said, what's up? She said, hey, Zeno needs a haircut. I said, what?
Yeah.
I said, oh, okay. I had two barbers in mind. So my first guy was closing up his shop, and he literally was like about to head back to the shop, but he got pulled over.
Dang.
And so I told him to hit me back ASAP. And then Eden told me that, you know, you couldn't make it last night, but you could make it this morning.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, bet, let me hit Jordan up. And so I hit Jordan, and Jordan got it handled. So shout out to Jordan, man.
Shout out to Jordan.
Hey, man. Well, good, man. Hey, we appreciate you
I appreciate
pulling up with us and everything, man. Last time I heard from you was on Anime After Dark, man. So,
yeah. I pull up on Anime After Dark sometimes. I love y'all. I love just listening. I just love listening to y'all. Y'all are hilarious.
Thank you, bro. It's always you always give us like great content when you come up, bro, because you really always have something to say, because we don't get to talk to a whole lot of voice actors. Yeah. But like when we get to talk to like young legends like yourself, you know what I'm saying? Like it's dope as fuck, bro. You really have become like one of my favorite voice actors, because I'm one of the few that appreciates a good dub. So.
You know, thank you. Somebody today told me they were team sub, and until they started listening to my work, and I've converted them, and that's my goal.
No, convert them, because like it's sub. I mean, dub is so important, bro. Like especially like for people like me, I have a kid, so I don't get to have my eyes on the screen at all times and shit like that. I be cooking, I'll be trying to multitask and shit. Yeah. So whenever it's a good dub on, I always cut it on. Like I waited for Ranking the Kings to finish on the dub.
Oh yeah.
And I finished Ranking the Kings and dub just because I appreciate the dub. And Chris Sabat's in there, so I have to listen to anything Chris Sabat's in. So, yeah. So that was big for me. So how'd you get started in the industry, bro?
Really, like I took a class. I've been in acting my entire, I won't say my entire life, but like in middle school, I started really getting into it, and my mom put me in this class that it was pretty much like a 10-week class. It's like singing, dancing, acting, and then they were in it was this place called All About Kids. It was ran by this lady. She was a black woman named Felicia Scott, and she would like teach like these kids like kind of the triple threat. It was kind of like training them to kind of be the next stars. And so I took their program, their I Want an Agent program, and then that introduced me to, I auditioned in front of like 10 agents after the end of the program. Wow. And then one of them picked me up, who the agents I'm still with now, CESD, they picked me up. And then they sent me on like my first couple auditions. You know, they were sending me on like TV stuff, animation stuff, commercial stuff. It was really only for commercial, but the other agents started just throwing stuff my way just to see. And so I booked Ben 10 Alien Force at that time. And yeah, I saw, I was Alan.
Great,
I was Alan Albright, the half Pirate Knight. That was my first ever voiceover job.
Were you Heat Stroke as well?
Huh? He was half Heat Blast and
Heat Blast, that's right.
And half human.
Okay, that's what it is. Yeah.
He was half Heat Blast and half human. So that was my first job. And then my second job was City of God. Like, you know, I don't know if y'all seen that movie. It's like this Brazilian movie.
Is it subtitles?
It is subtitles.
Okay, I think, I know exactly what you're talking about.
We localized it in a dub, and I played one of the main characters as a kid, like as his younger version. And then I didn't work again for like 7 years. And in between that time, I was just like, I was still in school, and I heard a lot about like, you know, I was just like, going to class. I was doing classes, making demos, auditioning still. But that's kind of how I got into it. That's how I got started. And then eventually, you know, Big City Greens happened. I started like putting my demo to studios who, you know, so then that's when like One Punch Man started. Like that's when One Punch Man happened. That was like one of my first ever, I think, anime that I've ever done. And like a named role. Like I did, my first one was All Noah Zero. And I auditioned for the open, so that studio used to do these open auditions at Bang Zoom. Mm-hmm. That's how I went to, that's why I went to Anime Expo to begin with in the first place, because people were tagging me because I knew, like friends of mine would tag me because they knew I was an actor. Like, oh, there's open auditions. You can audition. You might be able to be in an anime. So I went and I auditioned, and I think I lost that year. I think that was the year, I think I lost to Zach Aguilar that year. I'm not sure. But I know I did the open auditions and I didn't win. And then they had another contest called Perfect Idol. And that was like, you could be in an anime, but you had to like do a video like about yourself, and then like a video of you performing. And then I didn't win that either.
What?
Yeah. And so then I auditioned for open auditions again the next year. And then I won that year. And then my first job was, because the first year you could be in Magi. I was like, you could be a background character in Magi. Like they would, if you won, you would just play a background character.
Oh, okay.
They would just start you off like, you could do some incidental.
That's something for the resume.
And then I watched Magi because I really wanted to be in Magi, and like I really wanted to be Sphinxes. I was like, oh, he's cool. I would love to play him. And but little did I know, like by that time it was all already cast and everything. And then All Noah Zero was like the first one ever I think I did. And then, you know, One Punch Man, and then stuff happened after that.
Yeah. A lot of stuff happened after that. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going down your credits and everything, man. So let me bring this one up, because this is one of my favorite characters of all time.
Okay.
Taiga Kagami.
Yeah.
Bro, whenever I watched Kuroko's for the first time last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, I wasn't really huge into sports anime. So the first one I think I saw was A Hero no Sora. And
okay.
So that was like the first basketball one I saw. So that was my expectation going forward. Then I started Kuroko's and I was like, oh wait, this is different.
Yeah.
This is different. And Taiga, oh my God, that whole show just is amazing. And then whenever I found out that they were putting the dubs on Netflix, and then I saw your name, I was like, hold on, I know who that is.
Right.
Wait a minute.
Whoa.
Yeah. I said, oh shit, he's playing Kagami.
Yeah.
So how was that experience landing that role, and for such a like important character? To me in sports anime, that's like one of my favorite characters in sports, all sports anime.
That's crazy. What's crazy to me is that another voice actor in the community was always talking about how he wanted that show dubbed. He was like,
needed
Kuroko's basketball, if that ever gets dubbed, like I really want it. And I felt bad because he wanted to play Kagami. And like I know it, like he was the one who introduced me to, because I had no idea what it was at that time. He like, I think on like we were talking about Twitter stuff, and we were talking about stuff we would like to get dubbed or people we'd like to play, and he's always like, I would always want like Kuroko to get a dub. And so I heard that it was getting a dub, and then my agent was like, oh hey, you've been offered this role in this Netflix dub of Kuroko's basketball, Taiga, and I only knew him as Kagami, so I was like, okay, cool, like whatever, like sure, whatever. Like I never watched it before that, and so I was like, yeah, cool, whatever, like that sounds fine, whoever that guy is. And so I looked him up and I was like, oh, this is the guy. I was like, oh, this is the guy.
The guy.
And so like I have no idea why they offered that to me. Like in hindsight, I have no idea, because like I felt like my voice doesn't really lend itself to that character. I made it work.
You played it so well, bro, because Taiga Kagami does a lot of screaming and yelling when he's about to dunk and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? And you pulled it off. Like I'm like, oh shit, like, I'm into it. Like I felt it. So
I think they were just like, oh, he's from America. Zeno's like got prominent like black talent, so he'll probably be able to kind of give like Kagami, and that's kind of what I wanted to do, like a little bit more of like that American. They made him talk in slang, and I was like, I can justify this a little more, So like that was like where kind of the angle I was like going for when it came to playing Taiga. I was like, oh, I'm gonna just make him. Usually I'm just make him black, right? I was just like, he loves basketball. He's from America. You know what I'm saying? He talks. So I just decided, I was like, I'm just gonna make him like as black as possible. And I think that's just gonna really lend itself to the character anyway. And yeah, so like it was cool. It was fun. It was really fun playing.
That's super fun. Yeah, because I was literally just waiting for it because Netflix didn't dub all of them all at once. So
yeah, it was like season by season, which was cool because like I think because Kuroko's Basketball is like a 10-year-old show. Like it really reintroduced the audience to the show and to a new audience who could experience it in a different way with the dub. And I really think that was like a cool move on like Netflix's part to like kind of reintroduce the series to but old and new fans with like this like dub that's never been done.
So, right. Yeah. It was perfect, bro. Because like it's been out for forever, and then the Netflix finally put it together, and I was like, okay, I'll start it now. Yeah. Because for some reason I didn't want to do a subbed basketball anime. I was like,
for me, like I don't really watch a lot of sports anime myself, so like even when my boy was telling me, oh, you should watch it, it's really good, I would be like, okay, but like I'm having a hard, like I love Haikyuu, but I sometimes have to like I watch a bunch of Haikyuu and then I take a break. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks.
And so like that's how I felt like Kuroko would be for me. And it's like 3 seasons in a movie deep, right? It's like that's a big commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. That movie. Oh man, we're gonna talk about the movie.
Yeah, movie's gangster.
So I gotta ask. So take Kagami out of it. Who is what? If you could rank the Generation of Miracles, how would you rank them?
Almine.
Okay.
Almine first, for sure. Then maybe I'd give Midorima.
Midorima, okay.
Yeah. And then wait, actually no. Almine, then Kisei. Yeah. Then Midorima.
This guy's culture.
Yeah. Then Akashi. And then who else is in there?
Let's see, Amine, Midorima.
Oh, and then Murasaki Bar.
Yeah. I definitely, okay, so yeah, you that's very close to mine. I got Kisei first.
Yeah.
Only because Kisei can do everything
everybody else can.
Yeah. Kisei can literally go toe-to-toe with all of them. He may not be able to do it the whole game.
Yeah.
But he can go toe-to-toe with all of them, and he can access the zone. So
yeah.
I love Kisei. So yeah, he's my favorite outside of Kagami and Kuroko, like that part of the generation.
Kisei really caught up. At first I was just like, Kisei's whatever. Like, you know,
they downplayed him in the first season.
The first season, I was like, oh, this guy's weak. I was like, oh, but then they established him, and they was like, oh, he can actually go toe to toe with anybody. He just copies their moves.
I'm like, he's like the Kakashi of basketball. Like, he's like literally he can do it all.
He can do everything.
Man. Yeah. And he can do it like interchangeably. Like he can go from one to another.
Yeah.
And so I love Kisei. So all right, cool. So the movie.
Yeah.
So the movie was like literally like just like the icing on the cake for me, because I saw the movie was subbed at the time, and then one day randomly Netflix pops up, it's dubbed now. So
yeah. A lot of people were asking, "Oh, you gonna dub the movie? You gonna dub the movie?" I was like, I didn't know what I could say, because Netflix sometimes be really strict about it. But I was like, don't worry, we're gonna dub the movie. Just do the whole show.
Just wait on
the whole thing. Yeah.
No, I love the movie because like it really kind of showed the American arrogance.
Yeah.
And then they got humbled really quickly.
Yeah. What I thought was hilarious is like most American team were black. I was like,
hey.
I was like, yo.
Hey, listen, we got hoopers over here.
I was like, it's accurate at least.
It was very accurate.
Yeah.
And then Nash was like the perfect point guard to me. And I was like, okay, this is super believable. Like the way it's going down, and it went down to the wire. So the best, it was really just like fan service, because I'm like, oh, I got all the Generation of Miracles playing at one time
together. Yeah.
So that was like the cake for me. I was like, okay, this is basically anime basketball porn to me. Like it's perfect. Like I needed this. Yeah, man. Okay, so let me move on to something else, man. Let me see here. Another. So I wanted to ask you this. So Hanma.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Tokyo Revengers fan.
Nice.
Spoiler alert, I'm cosplaying Mikey tomorrow.
Okay.
So you may
see me. AJ. You gotta go see AJ.
I do. So how was it playing such an interesting villain?
Yeah. I was surprised when they offered it to me, because like again, I sometimes get offered stuff that I don't think is like in my like place in my strengths and my register, right? Like Kagami, I was like, oh, this guy, I feel like he's gonna have like a way deeper voice, and you can hear it in Kuroko's like me finding the voice like episode by episode. Like if you listen to Kagami episode 1 and then listen to him in like episode 8, like it's a totally kind of different, it's a slightly different sound, because I found it like episode 3 or 4. So like Hanma was because I actually really wanted to be Smiley. I actually really wanted to be Smiley. Like I was like looking up when we were dubbing it. I was like looking up characters to play. And I was like, oh, I want to play Smiley. Like he looks cool. He looks like he has an afro. He's the closest thing to being black. You know, I was like, oh, like that would be cool. And apparently he like does some cool stuff like in later like seasons. So I like really.
I'm a reader, so I already know about Smiley, man. Oof.
So I really wanted to be Smiley, and then maybe if I would double up as what's the other, his brother, Angry. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm gonna play them. And then I was offered, my agent was like, oh, like, I think we fell through on that one, but we got this guy Hama. And I was like, all right, whatever, I'll take it. And then like when he came on screen and I heard him for the first time, I was like, why did they pick me for this guy?
He's such an interesting, like, I watched that one sub. So like whenever he would talk, he'd be like, Mikey.
You know what I'm saying? I was like, what about this guy that they like want me for? And then so like but like he's like sort of unhinged and like
super unhinged.
That is fun to me. Mm-hmm. Like I don't get to play a lot of characters that are like that.
Because I was going to ask you about that because for the most part, like going down your resume, you pretty much play the protagonist in a lot of the series that you play.
Or I'll play like the cool guy. I'll play the friend, or I'll play like the traumatized, like, you know, like, or I'll play the kid, right?
Yeah,
so like, this one, it was like a villain, and I don't get to play a lot of villains. Mm-hmm. And he is like also just like unhinged too, but he starts off really mellow. I wanted to make him crazier, actually.
Really?
Like I wanted to make him wilder, and our director was like, let's ground him a little bit more. He was like, especially because like now he's kind of got these like two sides to him. Like when he first shows up, he's just like, I'm tired, like like, you know, like I don't really, you know. And then when it's time to fight, though, is when the switch turns on.
Oh,
like,
it goes crazy.
You know, yeah. So like that stuff is fun. So that's how it felt playing like Hama. I was like, oh, like this guy's like playing with the nuances of like the calm Hanma, like, and the like battle, like bloodthirsty Hama, where he's just like, he just gets a high off of violence. And like if there's anything that's not violence, he doesn't care.
With that type of role, do you have to prepare for it a little bit differently than when you would with your other roles that you have?
No, I don't think preparing for it differently. It's more like attacking it differently in a different headspace. Like he's not the first like two like multifaceted character I play. He kind of reminds me of Hawks in a way, like where like Hawks is like two different sides, but like Hama's just got two wildly, like he's over here when it's not violence and he's over there, and like actually makes it simpler because it's like, all right, well, he doesn't care if it's not about fighting, or if, you know, he doesn't care if it's not about fighting. So then the fighting stuff is just easy to tap into because it's just so fun.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you brought him up. So I was going to definitely save Hawks for last because Hawks
you can save it for last.
Yeah,
I talk about Hawks all the time.
All right. So,
I like talking about characters who aren't Hawks.
So all right. So look, before we get to Hawks, I definitely want to ask about this too because I'm a huge Young Justice fan.
Yeah. I love how y'all shouted out on Anime After Dark.
We have to, bro.
Sometimes I be feeling like not a lot of people watch it, even though I know like people do. Like Greg on Twitter said like HBO Max got back to him after this past season, said it was like the most watched. It was the most watched original like animation HBO Max DC thing on the platform, and during the time it was out. So like I really appreciate y'all mentioning it, because I do feel like, you know, we always have to fight for it. We always have to fight to get it saved, and like, and I'm assuming it's because of viewership. I really don't know why, but you know, I'm always like, man, it's like not enough people watching the show. And when I go to cons, like not a lot of people, I know people are always like Hawks or Hunter, and so like some people will be Cyborg, like will reach out about Cyborg. So I just think it's cool that y'all like watch it and they're dedicated.
No, I'm huge. Like, I'm not big on the DC live action stuff, but like anything DC animated, I'm always all in. So like I'm the guy that before HBO Max was even a thought, I had the DC Universe. I had the DC Universe subscription, literally for Young Justice and Titans. That's the only two I needed. I was like, I don't care about anything else but these two. So we love that, and like we used to hold spaces for Young Justice. That's how much we fuck with Young Justice and everything.
That.
So
I love that.
Yeah, so like you getting iconic role like Cyborg, man. How was
crazy.
That, bro?
That's crazy because Young Justice was my favorite cartoon, like coming up, and like I actually really, really wanted to be on that show. I really was like, is Static gonna be in this? Is Static? Because I knew Milestone. I knew about Milestone at that point, and then Rocket was in the show, and then Icon showed up, and I was like, are they gonna like, when is Static? Like Static's gonna have to.
We need it.
I never auditioned for Static. At least I don't. If I did, I don't remember, but I don't think I ever did. But like, that was my favorite show, and I would watch it every week, like religiously. It was so freaking good. And then when Cartoon Network canceled it, I was like really upset. Like I was really upset, and so like I was one of those people who like took to the internet, and I was like signing petitions. I was like complaining on Facebook, and then I know Eric Lopez. He's with my agency. He plays Blue Beetle, and we met in the lobby, and I was telling him that's when he introduced himself to me. He said he was Blue Beetle. I was like, oh my god, this is my favorite. I love it. You were so good as Blue Beetle, and I love that show. I'm so mad it got canceled. Da, da, da. So I saw on his Instagram when it got revived, it was like, oh, we're back. And I was like, yo, they're bringing in just spec. And that's because, we did the whole stuff, all the stuff on Netflix, and we did all the stuff. We did all the stuff on like Save Young Justice, da, 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 da. And so, and then when we saved it and then we brought it back, I was like, oh shoot, it's back. I was just excited for it to be back.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And then I got this audition, and I was like, oh, this is for Cyborg. But I was like, Carpane's going to get it, whatever. I didn't even know it was for Young Justice at the time until I got the call back. I went to the callback room, and then I was asking who the producers were. I was like, oh, who the producers? And she told me it was Greg and Brandon. And I go, oh. And she's like, oh, so you're a fan. I was like, this is my favorite cartoon in the world. What are you talking about? I was like, are you kidding me? And they're like, yeah, like that's who this is for. And so I get in there, and I'm like, this is for Young Justice, right? Like, this is Cyborg, right? And they're just like, you're just going to be playing the code name for now, and don't worry about all that. So like getting it, and then they brought me in the room afterward. They're like, oh, just come in here for a second. And then I was like, okay. And so I walked in, and they were just like, well, you did a good job. Sometimes you hear back on these things, and sometimes you don't. And then the director, he turns to them, he's like, should we tell him? And then they're like, you got it. And I was like, oh my God. I was like jumping around.
That's gotta be crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Protesting for the show to come back, then becoming a part of the show.
So while I was working on it, like, on Facebook, they'll like give you like your memories, like, oh, this is what you posted 2 years ago or whatever. So I would like get on Facebook, and then like I would see like stuff that I posted back, like whenever it was canceled. And like, it was like, wow, it's so cool. Like I'm working on this show, and like looking at like past me complaining about the show and wanting it to be back, and like look at God, like now it's like however years later, and I'm in it in a huge capacity. So like it was like just every part about working on the show was like mind blowing, from like that to like we did like a whole documentary about it, and like that was on DC Universe, and that won an award. And then like the cast, like I was like acting alongside Nolan North and like Troy Baker and Tara Strong and like Kari Payton. I ran into him in the hall, and he gave me a hug, and he's the OG voice of Cyborg, and he's playing my dad. I was just like, oh my God, this is freaking insane. Jesse McCartney, he's also Roxas. So I'm like, bro, I love Kingdom. It was just every part about working on the show was absolutely like blew my mind. Like, so like, yeah, like that show, and it's still some of my best work, I think, to date. So
no, absolutely. Like Young Justice is one of those shows I think that doesn't get enough appreciation. Like even though it's still popular, I feel like everybody should have HBO Max for this show.
Absolutely, I 100% agree.
For sure,
100% agree.
Do you typically? So if you had to kind of like pick between what you prefer, do you typically like doing a Western animation, or do you like anime doing your voice performances?
It's so hard to pick because they both have their own strengths and weaknesses. They both have their own like pros and cons for me artistically, that I like how I feel about working on them. But typically I think I like working on, I think from an emotional standpoint, anime a bit more, because the stories always tend to be more not necessarily mature, but they tend to be more complex. Like the characters always tend to have like all these like complex thoughts and opinions. And so it lends itself to the acting of it a little, I think, a little more in the direction that I like artistically. Sometimes a lot of Western animation shows are just, they're very much about comedy and like, these are for kids. So we have to like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like a lot of the times in anime, like there's always like a crazy scene happening, or like some kind of crazy, or some characters like yelling they're screaming their heart out. And like that stuff is like the stuff I like live for when it comes to acting. Like, oh, like, let me just dig into this emotional scene. And surprisingly, a lot of like anime has has that more than Western animation. But like some stuff I've been working on recently has been like Young Justice would be like a good example of like Western animation that's like perfect to work on, because I like that stuff because it comes from me. Like I'm not restricted to flaps. I'm not restricted. I can just really dig into the work. So it's harder trying to like do emotional scenes in anime, but I tend to like working on that a little more.
Oh no, you kill him, man. Because like I said, we already talked about Kagami, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Kagami's an emotional player, especially when he's playing. So
he's always angry, but it's like his anger has to come from somewhere. So
I respect it. So back to anime and everything like that. So Hawks.
Yeah. Hawks.
So I don't know if you remember this last year. I wanted to bring this up to you.
Okay.
So last year when we saw you at DreamCon, me and everybody from Anime After Dark, we were with our friend Tatted Poodle.
Yes, I do remember. I remember very vividly, actually.
And so we always tease Poodle like, hey, remember when Zeno, used Hawk's voice and was like, hey Tatted Poodle, I'm your baby daddy.
I'm Tatted Poodle's baby daddy. Hey.
That was the funniest shit in the world, man. That's how I knew, like, hey, Geno's a real cool ass person in person and everything. Like, that was just super funny. That was. So with Hawks, man, so that's like the role that, like, matter of fact, when Jordan texted me today, the barber, he was like, hey, man, you ain't tell me he played Hawks. I said, I told you he was famous, man. I said, hey, listen.
Yeah, he said that in the chair. He was like, oh, you Hawks? Yeah. He's like, you the #2 hero. I was like, yeah.
I said, Jordan, Zeno's a very famous voice actor. Please cut his hair good, man.
I appreciate it. Semi famous, but he hooked me up.
Yeah, man. So with that role, man, like, how is it, like, especially going with cons like DreamCon and everything like that, dude? Is that like the main role that people come to you and talk to you about?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like without a doubt, like everybody comes to me and like they usually are like they love Hawks. They love Hawks. They love My Hero Academia. That's usually like the most famous one. Recently, it's been like Hawks and Hunter from the Owl House. Like Hunter is a little surprisingly, because like a lot of people, like especially at cons, don't really like necessarily care for Western animation. But like Hunter and Hawks have been like my top 2 kind of characters people come to me for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that role, man, have you ever, I haven't seen it if you have you ever cosplayed Hawks?
I haven't. No. The closest I got was what I wore to the movie premiere. That was like that wasn't necessarily cosplay, but it was like something like inspired by his fit, like that would work for like a movie, like not a movie, but work for a premiere outfit. But I actually have not cosplayed as Hawks.
So Hawks is the one role that I think that like really shows your bag as far as your talent and everything like that, because Hawks literally goes from super serious to happy smiley in just a second. So like, is that something that like you enjoy doing, like the instant switching?
Oh, I love that. Okay. I love that because that's always indicative of somebody who's like has just a complex and a nuanced mind. They're 3-dimensional when they become that way. Like Hawks isn't just happy-go-lucky all the time. And in fact, I think like the happy-go-lucky stuff sometimes is like a front. It's a cover. And like that's the stuff that's like, now we're getting this is the acting, this is the work. Now we're getting into his head. Now we're becoming the character. Like, why does he do this? And for who? Like, what's the benefit of this? And like, when does he drop the mask? How much does he let the mask slip? And that was a lot we played with in season 5. It was like, how heavy-handed can he be with Endeavor? Or how much does he let the mask slip with Endeavor or with Dobby, right? It's like he's undercover. So like now he's wearing the mask he wears in front of everybody else for a different purpose for the League of Villains. So, like that stuff is the stuff where it's like just really getting into like the work of it, really getting like deep into like his psyche and how much do I thread this line, and that's the stuff I live for. That's the jazz, that's the juice.
I can tell you really enjoy Hawks and everything, man. I think I've seen you in that hoodie that Soul King did. I love that hoodie, and I have not purchased it yet because it's always sold out.
It's always sold out.
Yeah, I was like, I want this hoodie so
he's here.
bad.
You asked me, he's here.
I don't know what Soul looks like in person, so I've only seen his ad. But
I saw it. So yesterday I came to get my badge, and I saw a guy. He's like this tall dude. I saw him standing. He was waiting, and he was wearing the Miracle shirt. And I was like, and I like was walking up, and I clocked him, and I was like, not clocked him. I noticed him, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, I love seeing Soul King shirts in the wild. Like, wow, cool, Soul King shirt. Like, wow, I can't wait to DM him and tell him. And then he was like, I heard of Zeno, and I like, was like, oh, maybe this guy just like is a fan or like he knows me. And he's like, it's Soul King. I'm like,
that's crazy.
Bro, that's you.
Is that
what the heck?
No,
like,
facts.
I don't know what you look like.
Never seen this man in my life. Yeah.
He's so like, whoosh, you know, he's so like inconspicuous. I saw him today and I was like, I had no idea that was you.
Yeah. Now I'm wondering because like somebody said Mike and I didn't know who they were. And I'm like, damn.
Might have been him. He was wearing a Gone shirt today. He's wearing a big Gone shirt.
It's been a blur today, bro. I ain't gonna hold you. I've been everywhere today. So, so how is it? So whenever you come to the conventions and everything like that, do you get a good opportunity to chop it up with the other voice actors that are on the shows with you?
Yeah. When I go to conventions, I always take the time to like talk to everybody, make sure they're doing okay. Like, or if I haven't met them, meet them, say hello, like show them my face, tell them I like their work. It is a great opportunity, especially because I'm in LA and some voice actors are from Texas or New York. Like, it's a good opportunity to just like kind of talk to my extended family.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, get to know them and like, you know, become friends, you know, grow my community.
Absolutely. You're definitely my favorite. I also like eventually I want to definitely interview Anaris.
Anaris is great. AJ is amazing. Gabe's amazing.
Gabe is my second favorite for sure because Gabe was like super cool last year as well. So I have to find him.
Anaris me and Anaris are really close. Like Anaris is my homegirl. I'll fight for it. You might have seen me on Twitter fighting people over her. So,
did somebody talk bad about Anaris? She's perfect.
People do because she's a woman. She's black. Yeah. You know, easy target for some people, certain people.
Absolutely.
So you know, I always got to step in and you know, Twitter fingers. I'm trying to do less. But
hey, listen.
But me and Anaris are close. Danny's here. I love Danny to death. Danny Chambers. She's actually one of the people who inspired me because she started. You know, she was doing this before I was. Like, she was like kind of a black pioneer in anime before